Bitcoin dumped all the way down to $100,000 yesterday, and now we got a very nice bounce at around 104K. In today's video, we'll be talking about what are the next key levels you should be looking at for Bitcoin. We'll also be going over the recent unemployment rate, and we'll discuss what's going on between Trump and Elon and how this could be impacting the markets. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So first of all, this pattern played out to perfection. We've been covering it on the channel at length, and you can see that we broke down from this wedge and we actually held support on this May 12th wick over here. So you can see that we got a very nice bounce. Bitcoin almost made it to below $100,000, but we were able to hold this level as support. And now we got a huge bounce. This is also a very significant level because we can see that on the weekly time frame, we tapped into this very important fair value gap, and it was always within our expectations that we would be getting some kind of bounce from this level. This is a very, very strong level. Now, what is next for Bitcoin? Because a lot of people are saying that this is just simply consolidation and we will be going much, much higher, setting a new all-time high in the summer. But we also have the other side of the coin where people are saying that this is a bear market. You can understand their perspective because if we take a look at this scenario back in 2021, it is starting to look very, very similar. However, though, I don't think that this is the case, and I think that we're more likely to be in for a very choppy summer. Now, if we zoom out on this chart on the weekly time frame, let me show you what traditionally happens in the summer for Bitcoin. As we can see, let's start all the way back here in 2021, and we saw a consolidation back at this point in time. Then in 2022, we got another form of consolidation, and then here in 2023, what we can see, it was the exact same thing playing out. Some more consolidation, a new low before we went ahead and moved higher. Then, if we take a look at 2024, this was much longer, but it ultimately started before the summer, and we got some more consolidation for Bitcoin before we went ahead and pumped. And I think that this is about to repeat. I firmly believe that Bitcoin will continue to chop around, and we will form a range over the course of the summer, likely wrecking a lot of traders. Now, this has been my base case for a while now if you've been watching the channel, and I will stand firm on this until proven otherwise. Currently, it is entirely possible for Bitcoin to continue holding this level as support and continue to chop around at these levels. But in the short term, I do want to show you this potential scenario that looks like it's starting to play out on the Bitcoin chart. You need to be aware of this. This is a very classic head and shoulders pattern on the daily time frame here. So you can see that this is the left shoulder, this is the head, and now we are currently forming the right shoulder. I wouldn't be expecting this right shoulder to just absolutely nuke, and so it does make sense that we chop around, forming a little bit of a more rounded shoulder, but ultimately I do think that Bitcoin goes ahead and moves lower. And if we zoom out, it would be potentially moving lower to a very crucial region in this range. And this is the region that we've been talking about for weeks on the channel. You'll remember that this is the previous breakdown region for Bitcoin, and it looks like we could be heading back there on the other side of this head and shoulders pattern. The reason why this is so important is because, first of all, there's a ton of liquidity here, and it's where we consolidated before we had that aggressive move to the downside, targeting all the way to $74,500. Then we chopped back up within this range only to pump and set that all-time high. And so now if we take a look at the Bitcoin chart, it's a little messy now, but we can see that this pattern is starting to play out. So my expectation here is that Bitcoin could be chopping around these levels, and then we will ultimately move lower, targeting this huge liquidity zone that we tapped into several times during this Bitcoin bull market. The next thing that I want to show you on this chart also is it does coincide with another fair value gap. So keep your eyes on these levels because they will be very, very important. Now let's jump into the most recent unemployment data. We can see that the US in May added 139,000 jobs, with the consensus being 125,000. So this is ultimately pretty positive. The unemployment rate was aligned exactly with the consensus at 4.2%. And what this means is exactly what the comment section is saying here. The labor market is rather resilient, and this would indicate that Powell doesn't necessarily need to cut rates anytime soon. Now, let's take a look at the spot ETFs. So yesterday when Bitcoin went all the way down to around $100,000, we saw just under $300 million of Bitcoin spot ETF outflows. However, once again, Ethereum saw some inflows. And if we take a look at the ETH Bitcoin chart, it is painting a little bit of a different picture here. And it's exactly what we've been discussing. We are currently getting rejected, unfortunately, at the bull market support band. And my base case is that we will likely come back down and hopefully form a double bottom before before we can aggressively move higher. I don't necessarily think that this bottom has to be touched again. It could just mean that we form that higher low in terms of a double bottom, but we'll have to see how this plays out. Again, I am not bullish on alts in particular until we can hold this bull market support band as support. And in terms of Bitcoin dominance, what did I tell you yesterday? The weekly candle was red, but it is indeed now a green weekly candle. We're getting those shakeouts in the market that we've been talking about at length. What this basically means is Bitcoin has that dump to $100,000, altcoins take a massive plunge, and then when Bitcoin goes ahead and recovers, altcoins recover a little bit less because there's still a lot of hesitancy in the market. So until Bitcoin can reclaim higher levels and until monetary policy changes, it's highly likely that altcoins will continue to underperform, as we've been saying. 66% still my target, and it is likely that we could go as high as 70% in Bitcoin dominance. Now, this would of course be catastrophic to the altcoin market, but as you know, I will be updating you within my community when I think it's time to start speculating on altcoins. In the meantime though, if you want to join my community, you have the first link in my description down below. I regularly post some crypto trade setups, and so if you'd like to follow these trades, you have the first link in my description down below. Message me the word signals and I will onboard you into this group. Then we also have Bluffin. Of course, they have a fantastic promotion that we talked about in yesterday's video. If you trade with a lot of volume, you can get a ton of rewards. A Rolex, some AirPods, a Nintendo Switch, an iPhone 16 Pro Max, a MacBook Pro M3, and the Apple Vision Pro. This is all based on your trading volume, which is the second link in my description down below. Make sure you go ahead and sign up to Bluffin. And lastly, the third link in my description is Weeks, where you can earn up to $30,000 in rewards. You can get up to $2,000 simply based on your trading volume deposited directly into your account. And if you connect your phone number and your email to your Weeks account, which is relatively easy, you can get a $10 to $100 coupon added automatically to your account. So now let's quickly take a look at some liquidity, and we can see that over the past 3 days, a lot of liquidity is built up to the upside. And let's take a look here. I think some people did try to go ahead and long the bottom, as we can see, around $83 million in leverage, right around $100,800. However, most of the liquidity here is now to the upside. This tells me that we will likely be shaking a lot of shorters out of the market. And you'll remember this chart. I will bring it up once again because it is extremely crucial to understand the market dynamics. The Bitcoin exchange liquidation map. What do you see here, and what have I been telling you? Every time that this metric skyrockets in one direction, it tells us exactly where the price will be headed in the more medium term. And this tells me in the near future that we will be liquidating a lot of these shorts. Currently, there's about $15 billion worth of cumulative short liquidation leverage. However, on the flip side, there's about $9 billion worth of cumulative long liquidation leverage. This means that there are way more shorts in the market to be liquidated. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to go and put in a brand new aggressive all-time high, but we could easily just make our way up to say $107, maybe even $108,000 and liquidate these shorts before Bitcoin goes ahead and moves lower. It's all part of the head and shoulders pattern that I showed you. I do think that we are highly likely to continue chopping around here, and I know that I'm drawing out a very big range, but this is something you need to understand. It can take a while for these head and shoulder patterns to play out, and as we saw over here, we were ranging for around 3 weeks in May before this went ahead and played out on the daily time frame. So imagine now if Bitcoin goes ahead and ranges for a few weeks before it goes ahead and dumps into this key breakdown region. I think that this is the most highly likely scenario at the current moment. Now, also, let's wrap up this video talking about what's been happening between Trump and Elon. I touched on it slightly in yesterday's video, but just to give you some more details, Elon said that President Trump's tariffs will likely cause a recession in the second half of this year, and this is one of the lighter things that he said about Trump. Something else that he said was that Trump was in the Epstein files, and now these two are just continuing to butt heads. So what's the beef? Why are these two no longer getting along, and why did the market crash dramatically after this came out? Well, here we have exactly what Trump is doing with his big, beautiful bill. I asked Grok AI to go over it for us. So basically, Elon Musk and President Trump have clashed over Trump's big, beautiful bill, a massive spending package that Musk believes undermines his Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE's work. Musk came in with the primary objective to cut federal spending and reduce the overall deficit. And this is exactly what he was doing to a great success with Doge. He also supported Trump's campaign at length, which led Doge to slash government programs. But this big, beautiful bill that Trump now wants to pass goes completely against Elon's efforts. Basically, this is projected to increase the deficit by $3.8 trillion. And in case you didn't know what the US deficit was, let's take a look at the US debt clock. We can see right now that it is sitting right around $37 trillion. This is well on its way to make it to $40 trillion. So the reason why this is significant is because Trump ran on the premise that he would be reducing these unnecessary expenditures within the government, and he brought Elon on board to help him out with that. Now, this bill completely opposes to this, and basically it is a little bit of a tricky predicament for the president and for Elon himself. You can understand Elon's perspective because now all of a sudden his efforts get thrown down the drain. On the flip side though, a president that comes in and starts cutting all the spending will likely impact the markets negatively, and no one wants to be remembered as that kind of president. And so regardless of which party in charge, they go ahead and spend anyway to try and stimulate the economy. This is exactly what is happening with Trump's new big beautiful bill. And ultimately, this should stimulate the markets, but how long is this kind of debt sustainable? Someone has to do something, and we thought it would potentially be Elon with his Department of Government Efficiency, but unfortunately, this is simply not the case if the president is going to go and implement a massive spending bill like this. So to wrap up this video, let's take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart again. I do think that we will likely tap into this fair value gap once more. This is not the last that we've seen of this gap, but I also think that all of those late shorters are likely about to get wrecked. This would have been too easy and too predictable to try and short the top. And I have been seeing some of your comments down below where a lot of you are very deterministic that this will just be a simple duplicate of 2021. This is not my base case right now. You know what I'm thinking. We will likely go ahead and chop in the summer, wreck both sides of the equation. And as we take a look at this head and shoulders pattern, I do think that the ultimate breakout here will be all the way down to around $95,000 in the key breakdown region. But it could take some time to play out, as I showed you with my previous drawings. And that sums up today's video. The exact patterns that we discussed played out on the Bitcoin chart. The community is absolutely printing. Reminder, that is the first link in my description down below. And it does seem like Bitcoin is forming a scary head and shoulders pattern on the daily time frame. Despite this, and despite the fact that I do think we will likely chop around, wreck some of those late shorts, and that this head and shoulder pattern will play out, I still don't believe that this is a repeat of 2021 because that would be just way too easy. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.